Hello and welcome to Cartoon Everything. Here, Meesimo with Kelly Light, and we're joined today by the amazing Dale Stephanos. Welcome, Dale. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. You don't have the applause sound effects. You guys haven't dialed that in
We're
yet?
going to add that in post.
Okay.
It comes later.
Yeah.
Oh, canned laughter. I want that in my house. Wouldn't that be awesome in your house?
Yeah.
Like you just walk around like, I'm having a hard day, and just like hit the canned laughter with all the dead people. You know, a lot of that laughter is like 50 years old, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like all the sound effects that were from like Gilligan's Island and I Dream of Jeannie.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Right. I would hear that a lot, I think.
Yeah.
Every time I bend over, you know.
That'd be fun.
It'd be nice when you walk into your kitchen, like everybody claps, you know.
I'll put it on the to-do list.
Get a button. There's probably an app for that.
You know what? There's definitely an app for that. Yeah.
Oh.
So we like to talk here on Cartoon Everything about cartoons. So cartoons not meaning any one specific kind of cartooning. It's kind of all encompassing, whether it's comics or comic strips or editorial or political cartoons or animated cartoons as well. So since we both know you, we know that you have come from this background of cartooning and along the way turned into an amazing illustrator. So we just want to talk a little bit about your journey and how cartooning and cartoons have kind of played into it along the way.
Yeah, it's the foundation of everything. I think it's the foundation of life, right? For especially for Americans who were raised in the 20th century, cartoons were absolutely everything. The most important thing. I know that's the same for you guys as well. What were your favorite, what were your go-tos when you guys were growing up?
Mad Magazine, obviously a big one for most of us, but I got really lucky. I'm an only child, but I've got dozens of cousins, I like to say. And one of my older cousins, when he went away to college, gave me his huge box of Mad and Cracked magazines. So I would just sit at home as an only child with nothing else to do instead of my homework, unfortunately. But I would just pour through these Mad magazines, and that's when I really started to recognize specific artists like, Mort Drugger, he's a good one. Jack Davis, he's another good one, you know.
Yeah. Those two guys were my favorites. I mean, as well as like Paul Coker was just incredible.
Oh yeah,
right.
Don Martin with the feet, you know.
Don Martin was the easiest entry point for me because I wasn't going to draw like Mort Drucker, and I couldn't crosshatch like Jack Davis, and like those Spy versus Spy cartoons were just designed so well. Like they were so beautifully designed, and then I was like, I think I can do Don Martin, you know. So
the bubbliness of it, everything was round and bubbly.
Yeah. How about you? I think I'm interviewing you now. How about you, Kelly? Who are your favorites? Thanks for coming by today.
Yeah, my earliest cartoon memories are in front of the TV. So my earliest cartoon memories, I had, believe it or not, I'd broken my arm when I was 4 years old. And it frustrated me because I was already somebody who liked to sit, watch TV. And like my dad would give me his legal pads and a pencil. And I'd just sit and I'd scribble while watching cartoons. So for me, some like old cartoons like Andy Panda are some of my earliest memories. But also because my mom and dad had that diner that had a comic book shop in the same shopping center. I started ingesting Mad magazine long before I should have. I was very young, like really young. I have an older brother. He bought them all the time. I read them all the time. Comic books, I was a huge Archie comics kind of person. So like when I think about being little and what made me really want to draw, I was somebody, like I would stare at the Mad magazines, but I really wanted to draw while I was staring at the Archie comics.
Yeah, so you like the whole Harvey comics?
Huge Harvey comic fan.
Yeah, me too. Like Richie Rich was, I loved Richie Rich. Unfortunately, I think we kind of have Richie. Look how he grew up. He became president.
Didn't he have like the bad friend? Was his name like Reginald? Or something?
Yeah. Yeah, Dollar was his dog, right?
Yeah.
The Dollarmation, yeah.
Yeah, I loved the Harvey comics. I was lucky enough to, much later in life, I inked some Harvey comics. A friend of mine, Bill White, who he worked on Ren and Stimpy. I met him while I was doing caricatures, and then he moved to Los Angeles to do Ren and Stimpy, and then a few other things. And he came home, and he was doing a lot of work for Harvey. So I think because he was just so overwhelmed with work, and I was the only person he knew who could use a number 2 brush, we sat in his attic and just inked pages for, oh boy, Richie Rich. What was some of the more obscure Harvey?
Well, there's Hot Stuff, Richie Rich.
Oh my God,
Wendy the Witch.
Yeah.
Hot Stuff, Casper.
Casper.
Lotta, Dot.
Was Sonic the Hedgehog on Harvey? Do you know? Because we did a bunch of those.
They could have been eventually. It could have been. Yeah. Like you're talking like early 90s, like that time period? Yeah.
Yeah. Probably late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, it could have been.
We were inking. He was penciling the pages and then I'd ink them. And, I wasn't, they didn't hire me. They hired him. So he made sure I could copy his style. I didn't do a good job. But we were working in the attic of his mother's house in the summer just outside of Boston. And it was just blazing up there. So like I'm inking pages and sweating on them. Yeah. And it's a mess. And, he was furious with me, but that was a lot of fun. So that was it must have been late 80s because that was before I got into editorial cartooning. That was the first time I was like, oh man, I was just doing caricatures at that time. And I just thought, whoa, this is like a adventure into the real thing, the real comics world. It was really super exciting.
Well, what was the first job? Was it doing caricatures?
Well, my very first art job was there was a retail salvage company called Building 19 in Massachusetts, and they'd have multiple locations. So it'd be like Building 19, Building 19 and a third, Building 19 and a half. So, and they had a circular that it was all cartoons. It was all caricatures. It was all hand drawn. And the manager's like, I used to draw on the walls in the lunchroom. And he said, you know what? Go sit in the back and just make signs. So I made signs. And then I started doing caricatures of my coworkers. And they're good enough to make it into the circular. So they hired me to draw for the circular. So suddenly, like I'm 18 years old and I'm making a living, doing advertising art and, cartoons. So that was the very first one. And then that turned into, I saw them doing caricatures at a cart in Quincy Market in Boston and just asked, for an audition, I guess. So I really just sat down and started drawing and they were like, okay, I guess you can work here.
Wow. Was there anybody there that kind of showed you the ropes or helped you get into the live aspect of it?
Oh yeah. That was very important back then. You had to have a gag, right? Mm-hmm. You had to be able to do 10 an hour and you had to have a gag. So you had to think of a concept and you had to have a conversation with someone and learn a little bit about them and then, create something just for them. The way they do it all now today. I don't know do you just do heads now, Christian? Is it just
heads?
And...
Depending on the venue, some artists get butthurt if you add too much background and too many gags. And some, they're all about the gags and about the scenario and we'll spend some more time. So it depends on kind of what group you're working with. There's a lot. I feel like nowadays, depending on whatever style you want to work in, there's so many more outlets, thanks to social media. And, I've got friends that set up in Hawaii. They're just doing their own thing. They're really drawing really wild and they've blown up on social media to the point where people fly there just to get drawn by them.
That's amazing.
and it's like the crazier the better. So
yeah, yeah. I was always a pretty it was like a cartoon portrait. It wasn't really a hugely exaggerated thing. Because I mean, we're dealing with tourists at a place in Boston. I'm not going to make like mom have a massive nose and then she's angry, and so I tried to be very very civil about the whole thing. But I liked thinking of the gags because it was like it really keeps you active. After you get the muscle memory to just be able to draw somebody, it's not that exciting, right? So for me, at least it wasn't for me. So I liked trying to think of new gags to use, and I was shy, but that really kind of got me out of my shell and taught me how to engage, and really it helps me, with illustration because I always have to think of an idea. I'm going to deal with my art director. You've got to be a diplomat, because if there are changes, or there's always a situation, not always, but there will come a situation where something is difficult and you've got to learn how to just navigate instead of like snapping your pencil and walking away. I just had one of those, like a nightmare scenario. And I was like, you know what? You have survived over 1,000 bar mitzvahs. You can do this.
Yeah, you build up tough skin, and because everybody is your art director in the live character setting,
Right. And at first it bothered me, but after a while I really liked hearing everybody behind me. So it got to the point where I had a really good friend that would draw next to me, and I'm sure you guys do it too, we would play off each other. I'd lean over and say, "Wow, Doug, that's really good. Who is that?"
Yeah.
And that would kind of freak out his subjects, but it was fun for me.
You develop a shtick, right?
Yeah.
When you're
Yeah, it's fun.
You got to make it fun for you too, because you're sitting there for hours at a time. Do you feel like growing up, when you were staring at the Mad magazines, like, did you hold that onto that in your head as a goal, as that was something that you wanted to work towards, or did that develop organically? Like, what was the step from doing caricatures and then inking for that friend of yours for Harvey? Like, what was the moment when you said, "Oh, I want to be a published cartoonist"?
That's a really good question. I think I wanted to be a musician, so I put a lot of work into that. I didn't go to college because, like, I could have gone to Northeastern University for free. My mother was a dean there. We had tuition remission. My brothers went there, and like my parents were like, "It's free, just go." And I wanted to be an amazing guitar player. So I practiced 8 hours a day, and I was making money at Building 19 doing the cartoons. I'm like, what am I going to college for?
Right.
So I really neglected in thinking about a career path because I was just so focused on music, not really paying attention to the fact that I was supporting myself as an artist. That's what was paying for my Marshall stack. You know what I mean? That's what was paying for the Fender Strat. So it wasn't until, it was obvious that the music wasn't going to work out that I kind of turned and looked at the next candidate, the cartoons, and I was just like, I think I could do something with this because, I had a lot of interest. So I loved, it's so much different now, but I loved politics because it was interesting. It was like an exchange of ideas, and I always liked that kind of thing. So I think as the music thing sort of waned, my interest in dedicating myself to being a cartoonist and an artist presented itself, mainly because I am incapable of holding a real job, apparently.
Right. A common thing, I think, among
I realized during that whole period, it's like, whoa, I am not good at job.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very bad employee. I'm better now because, I'm not a kid, but I was very, very bad. So it was really, people say, wow, that's incredible that you did that. That's, that's very brave. And for me, it was actually the path of least resistance, because I was really motivated. I liked the process of finding work, like getting work, and then finding more work. And it really coming off being a musician, and like I was the one booking the gigs and getting paid and doing the advertising and developing the mailing lists. So it was kind of like, like I'm just doing the same thing. It's just with a different medium, So with a year of really saying, okay, I'm going to do this cartoonist thing. I think I'd self-syndicated to like 40 papers in Massachusetts.
Wow.
I could have the timeline wrong, but like I remember I was really focused on political cartoons. So I'm from the Haverhill, Massachusetts area. So I walked into I just did a few cartoons and literally just walked into the newsroom of the paper. And I was like, I have these, like, who do I show them to? And the editor wandered out, and he said, I'll give you $10 a piece. I was like, yes, but I knew that I could use that as a platform.
Right.
So I started, I knew that like Newsweek had that page with the quotes every week, the quotes in the 3 cartoons. New York Times had the same kind of thing. LA Times had the same kind of thing. There were a bunch of these papers that had like a weekly roundup of quotes and political cartoons, USA Today. So I would do these cartoons for this little paper that I was getting $10 a piece for, and then send them to like Newsweek and
samples. Yeah.
Yeah. And within a couple of months, like I got into Newsweek, got into the New York Times, LA Times. I think even the, I forget the paper in London, whatever the paper is. And a bunch more. And I remember, who's the guy at King Features? Such a nice guy. He's passed away since. I forget, but he called me just out of the blue and said he wanted me on their syndication package. It was I think it was NEA maybe. So I was like, yeah, I'm syndicated. And I was like, yes. And I realized it was 5 cartoons, and I'm in a group of 5 other cartoonists, something like that. And I was getting $50 a week. And I was just like, I could do that. I could definitely do better than that. So I rode that for a little while, and I was aware that I was new and I was still making mistakes. So I wanted to make the mistakes on somebody else's dime. So after I felt confident enough, I kind of put my own press package together, copy cop, going down, and the guys liked me there. So they would do copies for me for free after a while, after I did their caricatures,
Nice. Yeah.
That gets you a lot. It gets you drinks. It gets you, free copies. It gets you a lot of things. So yeah, within a little while, I was in a few dozen newspapers in Massachusetts, and that kind of credibility allowed me to approach the Boston Herald with a certain amount of confidence and show them what I did. Mm-hmm. And they took me on to do 2 a week, which was great. And that was big money. That was like a couple of $100 each.
Yeah.
Which like around 1990, for a schmuck who had no idea what was what, suddenly like I'm making a living,
right.
Between the caricatures and that. And I think I was also, with my syndication. And so I was like, I'm an adult now.
Right.
Yeah. So it worked. And from there, I got a regular gig, a weekly gig with USA Today. And that lasted maybe, I don't know, 5 years or so. But that was such a great run, so between the Boston Herald and USA Today and my self-syndicating thing. And I had other offers for syndication, but it was right around the time the internet started kind of creeping in. And I realized, ooh, this is like the first, I forget what the first paper to go down was, but it was like, that's not good. That was I think it was one of the Dallas papers. There was the Morning News and something else. But it started happening in a lot of cities, and papers were going down, and then you'd hear this cartoonist lost their job and this cartoonist lost their job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So by then I had been asked to do some illustrations for like Sunday opinion covers. Mm-hmm. No idea how to do that. I was like, yes, I will do that. I was like, I don't know how to do that.
So they asked you to do the covers based on your cartooning skills and the work that you built up, the portfolio that you built up over that. So then what kind of covers were they looking for? I mean, are they saying like, did they want it to be line based? Did they want you to was it color?
Oh, that was it? They got what I gave them. You know what I mean? So yeah, at first it was line based.
Yeah.
And that was all, just, Winsor Newton #2 brush, and like some rapidograph, but I didn't like the rapidograph because I don't have to tell you why I didn't like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why don't you like hand grenades? That's why.
Getting too much further, when you're in that period doing the syndication, all that cartooning, were you connecting with many other cartoonists at the time? Did you have any like mentors of that ilk? During that period?
Yeah. Paul Zepp was the cartoonist at the Boston Globe, and he was just so wonderful. He won 2.5 Pulitzers, and what that means is he won 2, and then he won a 3rd, and I guess someone in the Pulitzer committee was like, wait a minute, he won 2, the past 2 years, and he's Canadian.
Wow.
So, he was just super, super generous, and he's still super nice to me on Facebook today. And I'm always like, oh man, that is awesome. And then, at the Herald, before they took me on, I just went in to visit. That was back in the days remember when you would call people? Like you just call people on the phone?
Yes.
And
they'd answer.
They'd answer,
right.
And
you actually have a conversation.
But it wouldn't be 4 rings, right? They just answer, and I just asked if I could come in, and I was a cartoonist, and asked if I could come in and talk to him, and Jerry Holbert, he was such a nice guy. Unfortunately, it was funny. Do you know his work? Either of you guys know his work at all?
No.
Yeah, he. Just beautiful, like real fun. I think he worked at Disney for a while, but just really kind of Jeff McNelly, that world, but very, very kind of looked like things were melting, and just really super cool caricatures. Like I just really envied his ability to caricature the way he did. But he like. A few years ago, his work started looking kind of like, what's up with Jerry? I didn't know if it was like with David Levine, the caricaturist. He went blind towards the end, and his work actually got, and I'm not joking about this, his work actually got like really interesting because he was struggling with that limitation. A lot of times that's what makes your work really interesting. But yeah, Jerry developed dementia, and like for a guy who's living on his ideas, that's not good. So,
no,
yeah. So yeah, those guys, Paul Zepp and Jerry Holbert were huge mentors of mine, as well as Bill White, the guy I mentioned who did the work for Ren and Stimpy. As far as cartooning is concerned, those were the people that really helped me out at the beginning. And then I joined the AAEC, the American Association of American Editorial Cartoonists, and it's like the National Cartoon Society, except just not as cool. You know what I mean? You're the nerds. You're the nerds who read 3 newspapers a day. Go over there. And that's where I met everybody. I mean, Jeff McNelly, Rob Rogers, Mike Lokovich, all the great American political cartoonists. Got to meet Pat Oliphant. Man, his work is just blows me away. So yeah, it you can't do it by yourself. You have to get out and meet people. And, that's what I know. You guys tell your students that, and I'm always urging my students to get your head out of your phone. And great, there's a lot of great stuff in your phone. If I was your age, I'd do the same thing.
Right.
But you've got to meet people. Yeah.
And just fostering the room that they're in the moment, that they're actually not with their headphones on and their phones out, and that they're like the healthy studio environment is like, I love it when you guys are talking. I don't like it when it's quiet. I like when everybody's
so Kelly, you're teaching at Hartford Art School this year, right?
Yeah.
So have you had that situation there where you have a quiet room?
I've had usually, I think this is my third semester teaching, and I believe it gets louder as the semester goes on, right? So there's just a lot of them don't know each other. There's that factor. But there's definitely also the earbuds and the screens out at the same time as they're working on projects, which still, it blows my mind that they can have a phone, an iPad, earbuds in their ears, and they're trying to draw. I said that recently. It's like so much drawing happens up here. Yeah. And if all this other stuff is happening too, like how are you really kind of like, tuning in the frequency that you need to like,
right?
That's to draw. But so I try throughout the semester to have, it's not just the crit thing, but I try to have everybody kind of talk. I try to promote some talk, so that they get more comfortable actually, You know
what I've been doing? This is going to sound insane, but do you ever play Connections, the New York Times game Connections?
No.
It's a block of words. And 4 of the words at a time are connected in some way. And it's a very abstract thinking exercise. So at the beginning of class every week, I do 2 things. We play Connections. So everybody, we're being creative. You've got to be creative to figure it out. So, because you've got to think abstractly. And I do that. And then I'll just quickly draw a character from a scene in a movie. And they need to figure out what the scene is. Of course, if they don't, it's not my fault. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. But the quiet room thing is really becoming increasingly challenging. Yeah. And I agree. It usually kind of solves itself as the semester goes on, but every once in a while you get that class that you just happen to have a bunch of introverts, and it's like, oh man, you're missing it.
Yeah.
Like this is the experience.
Yep.
Your grade is not the experience. It's the people. Yeah. Well, it's like you guys. I met you guys in our MFA program, right?
Right. And you have to, I do think it's true. Like the whole idea of coming into teaching, what essentially is, I'm about to teach you about your future struggle. Like it's kind of like saying like, I've done it. I've come this far, and really the only way that I can really help you is to say like, hey, these are things that helped me. These are things that I tried. These are ways to look at things. For an art education, you can teach them skills, but that's really not the best thing that you can give them. Right.
You're right.
Right. You really give them like the idea that this is possible,
Well, there's art skills, and there's, like you were saying, Dale, it's like the communication skills and dealing with each other, because the person you're sitting next to, you might end up sitting next to them at a job.
Right.
So get to know them, befriend them,
Yes.
It's, that's where, this is just a snapshot of your potential future as it evolves,
Yeah. It's such an important, what do they call it? The soft skills, right?
Right.
It's as important, I think more important than the actual technical skill, because nobody wants to be around an asshole, right?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
we all want to draw like Alex Toth. But I don't hear many people aspiring to the other aspects of his personality.
Yeah.
But
Okay. All right. That's what we're going. That's what we do on this podcast. All right. Good. I'm in.
so,
Yeah.
speaking of Mad Magazine, when did you start to think you might want to actually do something for the magazine?
I mean, since I was a kid, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I said I wanted to be a musician, but all along, I mean, that's where you want to someday. You want to be in Mad Magazine, right? And I was just blown away that actually happened. A funny story about that is I sent Sam Viviano, who was the art director, I sent him, how am I going to be noticed, right? So I did some samples and some of the illustration-y stuff I had done. I think I'd been in some magazines by then. There was a magazine, Premiere Magazine, which was like a precursor to Entertainment Weekly, glossy, really, really beautiful.
Yep.
I back in those days, you would go down to New York on Tuesdays and drop your portfolio, and then wait, and hopefully they looked at it. And I noticed, I did that a bunch of times, and I noticed one time, like, I did that thing where you put a little piece of tape.
Yep.
So you can.
Did they open it? Did they look?
Yeah. And they didn't open it. And because it was the first time I tried it, I'm like, have I been doing this for like a year and a half and no one has ever? Because I was having a hard time with New York. And they weren't opening the damn portfolio, you know? It's like, man, that's rough. So I happen to know what this art director looked like. I forget what his name was, but I waited. And at the end of the day, I got my portfolio back. I'm like, okay. So I just sat there waiting, and finally he came out. I was like, hey, did you see my portfolio? And he just looks at me like, and starts shuffling to the elevator. I said, come here. I just want to show you really quick. And so he was like, okay. And art directors are very, very good at what they do. Yeah. They know when they see a good image.
Instantly. Instantly.
Whips through, because I was doing this this airbrush thing at the time, like kind of like more realism, more like like a really bad Mark Fredrickson, not dialed in at all, but the caricatures were janky because I was no line, because I'd been doing all line, and now I just decide, I'm just not going to do line anymore, you know. Yeah. So flipping through, and then there was this stuff I did for a local paper here, the Boston Phoenix, that was a mix. It was like it was line and chart pack markers, and then a little colored pencil. So it was a little richer looking, you know. And he stopped at that. He's like, "Can you do this?" And I'm thinking, like, it's my portfolio.
Right.
Yes. You know. But there were only a couple of examples. So he called me, and I did a fair amount of work for them for a year or so, and that was like my first national magazine. So I took a bunch of those samples, sent them to Sam Viviano in a red envelope. And a few days later, I get a call, and I was driving, and I had my daughter in the back seat. Actually, both kids, they were really young, in car seats. Driving home from the mall, had my first crappy, like, Nokia cell phone. See a 212 number come up, and I'm like, answered, "Hey, Dale, it's Sam Viviano." I'm like, "Oh, wow. Hi." And he started talking, and luckily Sam likes to talk, and I don't mean that in a bad way at all. It's just,
no, he's great.
Yeah. And I'm driving, and then I look in the rearview mirror, and the blue lights are there. I'm like, I wonder who they're pulling over. So, you know, I just kind of move aside, and he moves back at me, and I'm like, moves into the slow lane, you know, pulls him back at me. I'm like, my God. So, you know, Sam's talking, and I pull over, you know, get my license and registration. Sam's talking, you know, give him my stuff, you know, Sam's talking. The guy goes back there. So I got a ticket, and Sam continued to talk. And I got into my first MAD assignment, and it just paid for the speeding ticket that I got while I got the, yeah.
That's great. And he's talking the entire time while simultaneously.
Yeah, I would give him like grunts and like,
yeah.
Yep. Oh, really? That that kind of thing. So yeah, that was my first Mad magazine. Then I had a couple more after that and got a cover, which was
but
really
getting that first issue where your art was in it must have been a pretty cool moment.
It was crazy.
Yeah. Really crazy.
I felt like I felt like I had arrived, and it was cool because I took myself more seriously, and by that I don't mean I thought I was wonderful. I just thought, okay, I need to really respect this thing I'm doing. I can really make something out of this, and that's when I really fully committed, and just realized, okay, I'm all in. I've been given this special ability, and I'm one of the rare people who not only has the ability, but I somehow know how to get it out there and to talk to people. And again, it goes back to doing caricatures.
Salesmanship, yeah.
Yeah. And you don't think of it as salesmanship. You just think of it as you can talk about your work.
Right.
And you can represent yourself. And it's like, I believe in me. And, you want to use my work, great. Let's do something.
Right. That's the best kind of salesmanship because you're not doing it in some kind of put on way. You are confident in who you are.
Yeah.
Right? And you do have this attitude like, look, I can do this. And there's also awareness too that if they see in you something that they can use, great, but someone else might. Like if they don't, there's also this idea like, okay, all right, I'm okay with me, so I'll just keep going.
Yeah, I learned so much from being a musician. Another really important thing I learned is you don't want to be in front of an audience that is not yours.
Right.
So a lot of people are upset when, they're not using my work. I didn't get this gig. It's like, they didn't want you. You don't want to work for them.
Right.
You don't want to work for them because it's just, you can smell it. Like when I get a request for work and it's like, they don't know what they want.
Right.
They don't even know what I do. It's like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
No feel so good in those instances, right? And yes can be the worst thing in the world. I don't know about you guys, but how many times have you said yes and then just been like, oh, why did I say yes?
Right.
Oh, a few times.
Why?
Especially coming up, the first, when you're trying to feel out the whole freelance illustration thing, you'll say yes to everything.
Yeah.
And some of them you definitely have, buyer's remorse or whatever. It's like, you're like, what have I got myself into?
Yes.
And it could be a learning experience, but sometimes it's.
And it's important. It's important to learn that. It's important to go through that, I think.
For sure.
And it's also important to, once you've learned that, retain that information.
Yes. Remember that feeling. Remember the spidey sense that you ignored. Yeah. And that, I feel that again, like, no. Like, I can't ignore that again.
Yeah. I like how you just put that, though. Like, remember that feeling, because that's kind of been the through line of everything I've ever done. When I have success, like, remember how this feels, and remember, like, the work that went into it and the pride that you can take in, even if it's not a huge thing, if it's just a small victory. It's like, okay, I worked for this. I earned this. This is mine. Right. Remember how that feels. Yep. And also when you face plant and you fail, I keep that very, very close to me. My failures have taught me so much more than successes. Yeah.
The greatest lesson I think I ever learned was getting fired. Honestly, I got fired from an animation job early on. Totally deserved it.
Yeah.
Totally deserved it.
Why did you deserve it?
But I got fired because I didn't admit that I didn't know how to do something.
Oh.
I said I could do it, even though I really didn't know how to do it. And I messed up the production schedule by doing that.
Oh.
And I completely, when the guy did it, and the man who did it was somebody who was beloved. His name was Michael Thorne, and he's a beloved figure in animation. He has since passed. But he was a beloved guy. And he was nice about it, as kind as he could be about it. He was. And he said to me, he's like, you're going to remember this. And he was right. Mm-hmm. Stuck with me. I never did that again, ever. Never. I just asked questions, said, like, could you show me how to do that? Can you show me how to do that again? Like, I've never done that again.
Okay, I'll give you one. That I've never really told anybody. I think it was my third Mad Magazine cover, and I had been doing like all airbrush acrylic, like some colored pencils or pastel on top of it. For some reason, I really, really got into the idea of oil painting, and I was like, I'm an oil painter now. It's like, no, you're not. You've done 5 oil paintings. You know what I mean? You have no idea what you're doing. So I got this cover for Mad, and I think I had done another cover for another magazine, and it was just I pulled it off. But I did this cover for Mad, and I sent it out, and I was like, I think it's okay, you know. And I packed it up in this massive wooden structure that I fabricated.
Yeah.
And Sam called me when it landed. He's like, what did you send us? This is the heaviest thing we've ever received. I'm like, it's the cover, you know? And it wasn't good. It wasn't good. And Mark Fredrickson needs to thank me, because he did that cover. They called him. And then he did every single Mad cover for like...
Oh, that started his run.
Yep. That started his run.
So did they say to you, we can't use this?
They didn't say those words.
Okay.
They paid me.
Yeah.
And
then they didn't run it.
They didn't run it. And, you know, when it came out, it had Mark's cover. And I'm like, oh, shit. And I never heard from Sam again. And we had a pretty good relationship, you know? Mm-hmm. I saw him years later at the Society of Illustrators. I just went up to him and I said, hey, man, I really let you down with that cover. And he's such a nice guy. He's like, come on. And I said, look, I let you down, and I really let me down. And I've never forgotten that. That failure has done more to like kick me in the ass and up my game than anything. And he was kind of like, I'm glad, you know.
Yeah.
I think he actually
You're
said,
welcome.
I think he actually said, I'm glad I could help, you know, like that.
Yeah.
But that was hard. That was really hard. And like, I wanted him to know that, you know, I knew that I effed up and they had to scramble, and, you know, that I felt like I had let him down. So what was really nice was he got back on Facebook a few years ago, and he always says something nice. You know, and when this Betty White stamp was announced, he was one of the first people to, like, you know, just to put in a really nice comment, and might not have meant anything to him, but for me, that was as much a victory as this stamp was, because like he just represented like my dream just crashing and burning.
Yeah.
Just because of hubris, just because I thought, I'm so good, I can just change up and use this difficult medium and everything's going to be okay. You know? And then the deadline came. I'm like, oh no. Yeah.
But yeah. Sometimes we have to go through that process to actually learn the lesson. Yeah.
And hopefully it doesn't take your entire career down with you. Kelly, how long did it take for you to kind of recover from that?
It took a little while. I just moved back from Los Angeles, and I was living in this tiny apartment in Staten Island. I was working for free at an independent animators in Soho, and then kept putting it out there to try and get other work. So I will say, when I left animation, which wasn't shortly after that, I think it may have been slightly with my tail between my legs. So I segued into being a character artist for cartoon merchandise, right? It's related, but it's not animating. And there's something different about animating. Animating is like being an art magician. There's, you know, you're Dr. Frankenstein when you're animating. So, that might have had a little bit of a lasting effect on me, that when I got the job offer to go into cartoon licensing, I was like, okay, you know, this isn't working out. So I'll take all those skills and I'll do that instead. But it wasn't until years later that I really thought about Michael Sporn again. Like it was probably a decade later that it kind of resurfaced and really hit me. I wanted to create my own work and I wanted to get published. And so I think that facing those moments and kind of going like, what do I really want? Like that helps. It helps you kind of choose which direction that you want to go. And
it's a hard question because you don't always know exactly what you want because, if you're already working, it's like, well, I guess I want to keep working,
right.
Right.
And if that's taken away, it's like, oh shit, I wish I was working, now what do I want to do? Right.
Yeah. There is the safety when you're in a groove, right? If you're in a groove, but you can be in a groove and that groove can be grooving in some respect that's paying your bills, but it's not necessarily feeling good. So, one of the things that I find fascinating about you is how you've kind of gone this route to where now, so you said you wanted to be an oil painter at one point, right? So you're working at Mad Magazine. She's like, but I want to do oil painting now. Do you feel like it just kind of happened organically that you left cartooning and went into illustration?
It did,
yeah.
Yeah. A big part of it was, the internet killed newspapers.
Right.
So
there was that, right?
Yeah. Around, I don't know, maybe 2006. I'm not sure, but right in there somewhere, the Herald let me go. And it was brutal the way my editorial page editor did it. Like I sent in, by that time, I think I was emailing my cartoons. And that was convenient. It was convenient, but I was no longer coming in
person,
giving her the paper, the actual original, and having conversations and like bonding. Like we were both runners, so we talked about running. And on Fridays, she'd like to have her white wine at the end of the day, and I'd come in at that time. And so it became convenient to scan the stuff or to do it digitally and send it in. And she said something like, I don't think we're going to need this, something like that. And I was like, okay. And I thought she wanted a different. So I sent her sketches, like other sketches.
Yeah, other options.
And she called and she's like, no, we're not going to do this anymore. And I was just like, you mean like the whole thing? Like I'm not going to work with you anymore? She said, no, I'm sorry. And just hung up. I'm like,
wow.
Fuck, that was hard. Yeah, it was really hard. But by that time, I was getting freelance illustration work. You could smell it. People were losing their jobs all over. Newspapers were closing. That was right around like Kegel. Remember Kegel cartoons? That was a precursor.
Daryl?
Yeah.
Daryl Kegel, yeah.
Yeah, he sold that. I think he sold that for a lot of money. It was just like a platform for editorial cartoons. But it just, I think I kind of organically, as my interests changed and kind of pointed me in different directions, I've just always been able to find an outlet for it. Again, going back to the band days, like I was never afraid to, knock on a club owner's door and just say, we want to play here, or like the bar mitzvahs. If you make it through over 1,000 bar mitzvahs, you can do anything.
Anything, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I think for whatever reason, maybe I just present myself as like believing in my stuff, and I'm able to, monetize it. I couldn't tell you how, but it's a good question though. Like, because I've had a lot of different sort of incarnations,
right? But like the inner workings are what, like, I'm really curious about. Cartooning is kind of a way of seeing, right? And how you're taking in the visual information.
Very much.
And then how it's coming out, right? And how you're representing it is different, right? Than doing it in light and shadow and form. So that's like, I'm curious about that. Where the switch was, where you were you actually thinking differently? And that led to it?
That's a really, really good question. And as you were articulating that, I thought back on who I was in that arc. And I think and I was a late bloomer. I think I was a kid until I was maybe 42 or so. Mm-hmm. You know what? I was a kid until we had kids. Mm-hmm. So earlier than that. So I think as I matured and became more comfortable with being an adult, because for a long, long time I was very, very uncomfortable with being an adult. And I think, wow, I've never thought about it, Kelly. I think what I did artistically kind of reflected where I was in life. And like now, like I've I've lost both my parents. My wife has lost both her parents. We've, a lot of people have died. A lot of people are less than they were. We've just seen a lot. And my work in the past year, like my thesis stuff for the MFA, it's kind of harsh. I was just looking at it and like, man, this is hard. And I think it looks good, but it's really stripped down to just, it's very, very kind of bare. I don't want to say bare essentials because it's still very rendered, but there's not a lot of humor or fun in it. And I guess, wow, thank you for asking that question, because this is going to help me out with my thesis.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I think it's just, I think the work I've done has reflected where I am in life, and for whatever reason, I've been able to grow and have my work grow along with me. And by grow, I don't mean like, oh, what I'm doing now is better than cartoons, because in my heart, I'm still a cartoonist. If I could be, Maria asked me this a while back, if you could be any artist at all, all through history, who would you be? And it's like, Bill Watterson.
Yeah.
It's no question. Bill Watterson, man. Oh, yeah, it's such beautiful work. But yeah, so I'm going to watch this back, because that's going to help me out.
Oh, good. Yeah, but I think there is a through line to being a cartoonist, to being somebody who studies faces, right? A caricaturist who's studying faces, to somebody who's still studying faces. And whether it's you're a different artist when you're young, right? And you're seeing things on a certain level for wherever you are, and you're taking it in and you're drawing it through your filter of who you are at that moment, to what you do now, right? So one of the things is time that you're taking. Amount of time that you take staring at your subject's face.
Yeah.
The amount of time you take drawing.
Yeah.
The amount of time you spend with that face, right? So you and Christian both know the amount of time you used to spend with a face to get that caricature pumped out so that you can make money, right? The more you make, the more money that you make.
Yeah, like baseline 10 per hour versus 10 hours or more. Like
more.
I was, and I don't mean to interrupt Kelly, but I was looking at the David Lynch piece and just kept zooming in further and further, and it's almost like on a molecular level, the amount of detail. How many hours for a piece like that, for instance?
It's about it's probably 20 hours, 20 to 30 hours. I've discovered that as I've grown older, the tedium that I learned to endure as a kid. I grew up as a swimmer. Swimming was my family's business. We had swim teams. My father was a world record holder, and my mother was a child prodigy. She had like 15 national titles by the time she was 16 or something like that. So I grew up in a pool, just going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And so I learned how to deal with tedium. And I think as I've grown older, and all the stuff I just described, and that work in particular that you're talking about, I've actually, I kind of crave that sort of meditative tedium. And I'm sorry when I reached the point where I realized I can't do anything else to this thing, because I'm just killing it,
Yeah.
Because after a while, it just gets flat, and it's like, oh my God, what do you do? That's the reason, people watching this can go look at the work, but that's the reason I'm eliminating everything else around. So I'm just doing heads. It's kind of, I love the tension between nothing and way too much, because if you're doing, I love Bernie Wrightson,
right?
But I mean, where do I start? You know what I mean? It's like, where do I look? You know, I know Doug is a huge Bernie.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna be like a heretic here, but I like Doug Bell's work more than I like Bernie Wrightson's. And you know, he kind of grew up out of Bernie Wrightson's inkwell, right? But Doug can focus you.
He leaves spaces in his work.
Yeah. I mean, he's got some topy in there, but he has really good compositional skills and a really good sense of like a cinematic sense. So yeah, just random hats off to Doug Bell.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Guy's a beast. Right?
Yeah. The idea of the way that you work now and how I feel like it's still related to your, you know, the work that you've done all along is you're still dealing with likeness, right?
Well, and there's still a lot of exaggeration.
That's something I would love to know more about. Like, so you did recently, you've done David Lynch, you did Robert Plant,
Andrew Wyeth,
Morrison.
Wyeth.
So where do you find it's a subtle exaggeration, but you're still pushing some things?
Yeah, not the likeness and not the proportions, but the elements within are super exaggerated. I think when we look at each other, like we're not. Well, I am, but most people aren't looking at, you know, the pores and the and it's like, oh wow, I love the way the light is catching the side of the resting tension lines here, and the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I just dig that. It's like, oh, you know, just based on the way someone's face is wrinkling up, you can tell. They smile a lot. You know, like that's a smiler, or that's someone who, like, I've got this you know, this thing here, and apparently that's what I do when I concentrate. I'm not angry, you know. So that's where I've kind of focused my natural inclination to exaggerate. You know, it's a little more. I don't know if it's subtle or not, but it's not the proportions that are being exaggerated. It's my sense of sort of the topography or the landscape.
Yeah, so you're still designing. It's just in different ways. When you're doing realism, you're still a lot of designing, and you're still pushing things, but just differently.
Yeah. Like realism can get really. There's nothing worse than realism, right? Like it's like,
stiff and lifeless, and
it's like all I can see is the lousy photo you used for reference,
right?
You know, and like that would actually be kind of cool if you just get really crappy reference and then you just do crappy realism from the crappy reference. You know what I mean? But a lot of people who do realism just don't get there. Like they're just short, and it's always like, you know, maybe you shouldn't have done that.
Right. Yeah.
I have sketchbooks full of, you know, maybe you shouldn't have done that, but you know, we try not to share all of our failures.
Right.
I just share some of my failures when I don't realize they're failures yet. And that's the thing too. It's like a lot of times you'll put stuff out there. It's like, that's pretty good. And then 6 months later, you're like, oh shit, why did I put that out there? You know?
Yeah. What I found, it's almost magical. As soon as I hit send, that's when I realized it was a failure. It's like instant.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, though, is a lot of times, like I've learned, you know, working traditionally, take a picture. Right. And look at it on your phone, because that's going to reveal, you know.
Instant illumination. Like, whoa, now I see all these things that are wrong with it. Yeah. Oh, I'm not even close yet.
Right. You know, or I should have stopped 3 hours ago when it was good.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. That's the hard realization.
Yeah. But I want to find a way back to being a cartoonist. And it's funny. I'm doing, I've got a regular spot in Boston Magazine where they requested kind of like a Pixar style. And at first I was like, okay, you know, whatever. Because if someone's not asking for what you do, it's always sort of like, all right. But I've been working with them for like 20 years. I was like, I'll try that. That might be fun. Then I just thought this might be a cool way to kind of backdoor my way back into cartooning in some way.
Yeah.
Was that the Keys that went out recently?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because as soon as you posted that, I was like, look at that.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I'm glad.
It's silly.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just fun.
Yeah.
And I got to use like my realism skills and my cartooning skills. And that was fun. That was like, whoa, I hadn't done anything like specifically like that. And I approached it like a cartoonist at first because I just did, a fun sketch. And then I actually just took some reference photos of Keys. And it's like, okay, I'm doing the realism thing here, but, thinking like a cartoonist. So that was cool. I'd love to do more things that kind of really marry the two without the thing is you
back around full circle.
Yeah,
right?
But you can really easily fall into the uncanny valley, when realism meets
cartooning.
Cartoon.
Yes. Yeah,
so
for sure.
You gotta be careful.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you've had a lot of organic transitions in your work, kind of like that, where somebody asks you to do something and you think, well, I'll try that. Like with the more realistic portrait stuff, initially somebody asked you to do it when you were doing more cartoony stuff, and then was it something you'd been wanting to?
Yeah, are they asking me to do something different because what I'm doing is not happening? What are they? Right? What you're doing sucks, but could you do this instead?
Anything else?
Yeah, I know. Maybe you could be bad at this too.
Have you ever considered the New Yorker as an outlet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
It would be awesome.
That's my, Mad Magazine was my thing growing up. But we get the New Yorker, and really, I just subscribe so that I can get those covers.
The covers and the cartoons,
And the cartoons are awesome.
Sometimes, since it's been a while since you've done political cartoons, do you still take it in and kind of in your head make the cartoons in your head if you were still doing that? Are you glad to not be doing that in the current world that we live in?
You have to think like a cartoonist, right? And if you don't use it, you lose it.
Okay.
Right? So I still come up with ideas. Like I have in my attic, I have literally dozens and dozens and dozens of sketchbooks, but cartoon idea sketchbooks,
right?
And they don't make sense. And I saw some a few weeks ago, and I kind of miss doing that. But that was like 3 or 4 hours every single day, just squeezing out ideas. And so I don't really think like that anymore. Yeah. And I'm really I'm not built for like the online toxic discourse. I think I'm really sensitive, and at this age I've learned where to spend my sensitivity, and that's with people I love and with things I want to do.
Yeah.
And I have zero. If you look at my social media, I'm a much nicer guy on there than I am in real life. Yeah, because I'm not going to tell someone to go F themselves.
Right.
But I don't really have a problem with confrontation. It's just I'm not going to do it online. Going back to the confidence thing, I feel like I can present an argument. If you disagree, then I'll disagree with you, but I'm going to do it respectfully. And I don't see an avenue for that online, and that's where political cartoons are seen today.
Right.
And I have zero interest in exchange, or like I saw. I forget, somebody put up a drawing of this really great painter, David Casson. He put up a drawing of Zelensky, and he did it for his YouTube channel. It's a drawing. It's a realist drawing. And, it's light political content because he was drawing Zelensky, but his feed was just filled with toxic hate. And it's like,
yeah,
he's doing it for to show you how to draw.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I guess to answer your question, I'm not interested in doing political cartoons. I would love to do New Yorker covers. I think that might be the next kind of, thing I pursue that in, children's books maybe. Although from what I've heard, it's a bunny eat bunny world.
Bunny eat bunny world. You didn't forget that one. Yeah.
I love that so much.
It's very true. Yep.
It's really funny. We have a lot of rabbits in here in the summer, and I haven't looked at those rabbits the same since.
Yeah, no, yeah. That's true. It's watership down over in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If we learned anything from Monty Python, rabbits can be pretty fierce. So.
That's right. Yeah, I think I had mentioned, so just so that I never forget it, I have the Monty Python stapler on my
fantastic.
desk.
That's awesome.
But I got it because of what I experienced in children's books, and I was like, I'm just going to keep it on my desk. So
that's really funny.
It's a business. It's business. It's a business. It's a business. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's great. I did want to ask about the MAD exhibit at Rockwell, and you got to go to the opening for that?
Yeah, that was super cool. That's weird the way that lined up. So the work that was in there, I did in 2003. Somewhere in my life, I after kind of stumbling and falling on my face a bunch of times, I said to myself, okay, listen, here's what you're going to do from now on. What you do today is going to help future you instead of what 16-year-old Dale did to you, and that is have you dig out. Mm. That lined up with, I'm in the Hartford MFA in illustration program. That lined up with us going out there. So it was such an amazing sort of affirmation of what the work I was putting in back then. And I don't really relate to it now because my work isn't really like that anymore. But I often think about, okay, if you could go back and just if I could tell my 16-year-old self something, it would be like, dude, calm down.
Right.
It's okay. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. I was so upset back then. I was afraid of the future, and so for me, there was a really nice visit. It was like a time warp. It was like a nice visit back to a time when I kind of helped myself out and I achieved something. And beyond that, just being in that room with Tom Richmond and and with CF, I mean, he's one of my heroes. He's one of my art heroes, and being in the same show as him.
Yep.
Yeah, it was just amazing.
I think it's really cool. You got that opportunity to see yourself on the continuum. So I always say, we all exist on this continuum of art, and art with a capital A, and then an illustration. And so you got that check-in moment.
I was really grateful. I feel like I'm pretty humble about the things I've achieved. I'm grateful for the things I've achieved. And I have really solid perspective on where I stand. Historically, I'm not C.F. Payne. I'm never going to be C.F. Payne. I'm me. But very few people get to be in the Mad Magazine show at the Rockwell.
Absolutely.
So when I say that kind of thing in front of my wife, she's like, why do you talk down? I'm like, no. I just have a really good, so far what I've done, I'm never going to be in the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
Right.
I am in the permanent collection of the Rockwell Museum. I'm in the permanent collection with a stamp. Now I'm in the National Portrait Gallery. There's that. It's just, I know where I am, and I'm really grateful for where I am. And I'm grateful for the guy 25 years ago who did that work, who set me up for today. And I want to make sure what I'm doing today is helping 75-year-old Dale out, because I have a feeling he's going to be tired.
I even feel, to me, I have great respect for what people would call a journeyman illustrator, right? So there's people who work their whole life, and you'll never know their name till possibly after they're long gone, and you pick something up and go, I love that. Who drew that? Right? And if you kept your lights on with your pencil, you're a success in my book. right? Because,
you're a 1%er.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Nobody gets to do that. Nobody gets to do that.
Do what you love.
Right? Yep.
Pay your bills with it.
Yep.
Whether or not you get rich or you get famous, you've done what you loved and you found a way to make a life out of it. You know, I think that in and of itself is a level of success, you know.
Oh, I think that's beautiful. And if someone ends up, if I'm known for one piece that I ever did, you know, that's fine with me. I love how you just put that. If somebody ever somehow finds a piece that I did and is interested enough to find out who did that.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
And, you know, for me too, what's really important is, my kids have seen the entire show.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like I know it's all cool looking sort of in here now, but I used to have this set up so that the kids would be in here when they were little. Yeah, I had a computer over there for one of them, another over here. I had electric drums over here, instruments. So when their friends would come over, I started out doing caricatures. I can deal with drawing, with a crowd, with little kids around. Like,
that's a good skill to have, yeah.
Literally, like a kid right here.
Yeah.
I've got a Cintiq right here. Like a kid right here is like, can I try? I'm like, sure, I'll make a new layer. You can try.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, having my kids see, you know, what I've done, and you know, my wife is in a very, very high failure rate business, and being a woman in that business as well, just seeing that the people who raised you did what they wanted to do with their lives and believed in themselves, and they believe in themselves, and they're doing what they want to do with their lives.
Right.
So it's really cool. It's almost like nobody told them they couldn't. So of course they could. Were you guys, how were you raised? Like, did your parents believe in you like that? Because mine did, kind of to a fault.
I was very lucky from an early age, like was given art supplies and partially being an only child, as soon as they saw something that I could keep myself busy with, you know, they would bring me along to, you know, outings because, you know, no other siblings to babysit me. So, and then babysitters I did have were cool. I had a cousin, and she would supply me with art supplies and encourage my, you know, it's like whenever you're doing drawings as a kid and somebody gives you a cool response, you think, oh, I'm going to keep doing this, you know, like,
yeah.
And an uncle that was an artist, and they kept encouraging me and got me into a few, even in grade school, a few like summer art classes here and there. So, and then once they saw me doing caricatures where I could actually make a paycheck and afford to move out of the house, they're very supportive of that. So,
yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, once they see some actual return, you know, some actual results, then it's not just a fun hobby that they can encourage. Then it's something like, okay, there's some actual legs to this, you know.
Right.
So I felt very lucky overall.
Yeah. So my mom and dad were pretty supportive. They never told me to put down my pencil. They never told me I couldn't. They supplied me with lots of art supplies. I had the tiniest drafting table ever. Pretty young, which then I gave to my child. I put it in my studio next to my desk so that my kid could work side by side. Yeah, I felt pretty supported by my parents all the way through, encouraged to go to art school, never told that I couldn't do it. But there was one moment when I was working in the city, working in cartoon licensing, and I was working in the Empire State Building. And my dad at the time was like a business appraiser. And he came into the city. He did his appraisal on a business in the city, and he came and he visited me in an office with a window on like the 17th floor of the Empire State Building, and he cried.
Oh, that's
and he was
awesome.
He's like, I wanted you to do this. Never wanted to stop you from doing this, but I never actually believed this was going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
And so that was a moment when I realized they were scared. They were white knuckled the whole time. Yeah.
So I talked to you a little bit about knowing and being mentored a bit by David Wenzel.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to touch on his work and how working with him and his kind of mentorship. helped you
Oh,
along.
yeah. Well, as a teacher, David was just wonderful. By the way, did you see his son, Brendan?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you see that today?
He got named the best children's book of the last 20 years, and I couldn't agree more. Although I have one of his that I love even more. They All Saw a Cat.
Oh, a cat. Yeah,
which is the
that's
Caldecott book.
Yeah.
Is a spectacular picture book, and Brendan is a spectacular artist as well as a human being.
Yeah.
And of course he was raised by two artists. So
well, it runs in the family because David is he's one of my favorite people in the world. And you know how you kind of, you kind of move on and then you don't talk to someone. It's like David's one of those people that I feel like I could see him in 20 years and we'll pick up right where we left off. Mm-hmm. I started my first job teaching was at Lime Academy in Connecticut. And David was the illustration chair then. I had never taught before. I hadn't gone to college at that point. I had zero higher education experience. I was just an illustrator. And so I wandered into the school and we talked a little bit and I told him just what I said. And it was a very, very small school. I had 3 students. I was teaching senior portfolio and 3 students. And he's had 5 or 7. So he said, "You never taught before?" I'm like, "No." He said, "Why don't you bring your students in here and we'll start the day together." And he really kind of demonstrated how to do this. And I'm a quick study. So I'm like, yeah. So he was a really important, much later life mentor. And that was like 2012, 2013, something like that. So in my life, that's relatively recently. But yeah, I would have really been in trouble if it wasn't for David. And, he's wonderful. His work is wonderful. And he's just one of those, you're just thankful that they exist. That's all.
Cool.
I'm going to ask you questions. Some of the stuff we might have touched on, but so if you can think of somebody else or something else, you can change the answer. So the first one is, who is your favorite cartoonist of all time?
Bill Watterson, no doubt. Everything's magic. And he didn't merchandise it. So it's just pure love. Yeah.
Do you have a actual favorite cartoon character? It can be from strips, books, or animation, but one cartoon character above all.
Bugs Bunny.
All right.
Bugs Bunny is everything, right? He's smart. He's talented. He's athletic. He knows how to get revenge without looking like he's getting revenge, right? He's got everything. Right. He's smart. He's literate.
Yeah.
He can sing opera. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I always say he's like the Dean Martin of cartoon characters. He's cool, he's calm, he's collected, and he's a smart ass.
The best.
Best. Okay, that's great. So, who has been your favorite face to draw out of all of the caricatures or portraits that you've done?
This guy right here.
Right there, Keith Richards.
He's got a face that just keeps giving, right?
Right.
Yeah. I think every time someone dies, he just lights up another cigarette and, keeps going forward. Yeah, I never get sick of his face. It's almost cheap, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, great. Keith Richards. It's already done.
It's like a whole map on that face.
It really is.
Right?
It really is.
Yeah,
it just gets better and better.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Okay. What is your absolute favorite medium?
My favorite medium, you gave it to me.
No, really.
These are amazing. To the point where I keep ordering boxes of these because I'm afraid they're going to stop making them.
And they announced that they're sold out, and I always go, I think Dale just did that.
It was me.
Dale just didn't order.
It was me.
That is so it just makes my heart feel so good. There's something about this.
It is beautiful. My only complaint is they break a little too easy.
They do, yeah.
Yeah, but man, that is a smooth graphite there.
And dark, stuff. Right?
Yeah.
And even to think that it's called news because they used it, right? And it's such a fascinating kind of history.
Yeah, it makes me feel like I'm connected to the newspaper era again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool.
The lineage.
That's so cool. So on top of that is, do you have something that they don't make anymore that they wish they still made? That's an art supply.
I don't think they make for. I still use an airbrush, and I don't think they make the Comart paint that I have. I bought up a ton. You know what else I have? I can't get it out. Yes, I can. Just hold. I have.
You use the same airbrush as Dale.
Well, I had to switch paints because Comart stopped making the kind that I liked. Yeah.
I use the custom Micron B. This guy here.
Micron, yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. So do you know what is in here? This right here. This is no longer rapid fire. I apologize.
No, I think I know what it is, but go ahead.
This is that graphics paper.
Oh.
So you paint on one chemical that will kill you, and the crosshatch goes one way, and then you paint on the other acetone tasting chemical that will kill you, and the halftone goes the other way.
Yeah.
I still have this. I still have
that's gold.
Three of these packages here. So
can you imagine using it for something, trying it for something, like a project where you'd go like, oh, I want to use.
Are you saving it for?
Or is it like a museum piece?
Some of it's like a museum piece, but now that I took it out, I'm going to use it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think that'd be great. That'd be really cool to see. Do you have a least favorite thing to draw?
Like subject matter?
Yeah, something that you can't stand. Like you're like, I avoid drawing that. I do not want to draw that.
I have really avoided architecture because it's absolute. You know what I mean? And I really envy people who are able to draw architecture and give it a lot of character. So for that reason, I started taking my drawing class out in the fall, and we're right in the heart of Boston, and we just spent hours and hours and hours just drawing, the city skyline. So I'm getting a little more comfortable with it, but I'm not. It's not my thing. That and bicycles, and I love riding bikes, but I don't like driving.
To draw the bicycles, yeah. Drawing a horse riding a bicycle while playing a French horn was once told to me. That was a challenge. Yeah, and it was a good challenge. And I give that to my students too, because they say they don't know what to draw on their sketchbook. Yeah. And I'll be like, all right, if you really want to impress me, do a horse riding a bicycle playing a French horn.
Horse riding a bicycle playing a French horn. I'm in.
Yeah, do it. That'd be great.
Maybe I'll do it on that graphics paper.
Yeah. So other than faces, is there something that's your favorite thing to draw? Like other than portraits, do you carry a sketchbook with you? Yeah,
I do. Yeah. I draw a lot. I like hands, but I like people, I like ears. Does ears count? I love drawing ears.
Yeah.
But that's something I learned from Tom Richmond. My main first big mentor is that you're caricaturing everybody's face. And when you're first learning how to draw, you think, okay, now I know how to draw an eye, a nose, an ear. But everybody's ear is a little bit different. So it's a lot of personality just in an ear.
Yeah. That's that might be a good idea. Like name that ear.
Name that ear.
Yeah.
Right. Like Ross Perot back then.
Oh yeah.
Like we got an ear.
For sure.
But I have no idea what Nicole Kidman's ear looked like. Yeah, no idea at all.
Yeah.
Something to think about.
What inspires you the most? And it can be not just from art, but from anything. What inspires you? What do you get a lot of inspiration from?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. I think what inspires me the most is the possibility of doing something really, really well and, growing from that. That's as far just purely personally speaking. But, as far as like the larger picture, I don't know about inspired, but I just love being with my family so much. Every time there was a birthday cake involved in anything and you get the wish, you're not supposed to say your wish, but I would always, when kids were little, I would always wish that they would want to come home when they were young, when they were older, when they were, adults, and they do. And just, creating that environment, I guess, is what's inspired me throughout this whole journey.
Yeah, I know that your daughter is a filmmaker, correct?
Yep.
And what is your son into?
My son works. My son was a baseball freak growing up, and like a 12-year-old who would sit through 9 innings of every game, and if there was another game after that, he'd watch that. Long attention span. So he works for the Boston Red Sox. He works in the corporate communications office, and he just got back from spring training. So his office is literally Fenway Park. So, my kids grew up to really to go into their dream industries, and they're both making a,
I think that's a good bookend to us saying were our parents supportive of us? And so you've been supportive of them following their passions too. And I think that's,
Yeah, if they weren't into it, I would have been really disappointed if one of them turned out to be a lawyer or an accountant, if they weren't into that.
Right.
If they just thought that was a safe thing to do.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd be like, why don't you get, make a movie?
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. So our final question is, what do you think viewers get out of your work? What do you think they take away when they look at your work? Or what would you hope? What would you hope a viewer takes away from your work?
Oh boy, that's a tough question. I don't know. I'll be totally honest with you. I don't hope for anything when people do my work. I want my art director to be happy. This is going to sound this might be really cringy, but I'm in this for self-satisfaction. I do this because I love it. I want to be really happy with the work I do. I want to be excited about it. I want to be able to do it again and get paid again. But as far as it's nice to get compliments, it's nice that, people say things that are complimentary and kind, but that's not the juice I live off of. I really live off of the drive to try to be better at what I do. I'm not sure what that is exactly, but I want to be I want to continue to evolve and grow and just be better. Better is a bad word for it.
But keep doing it. And through keeping the process going, evolving.
To grow and evolve and hopefully in 10 years, I'm going to be doing something that doesn't look like what I do now. And maybe today I would look at that and just think, why are you doing that? But I think that guy in 10 years will be able to give me a good answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this has been awesome. I know.
Yeah, I think so too. I love talking. I always like talking to you guys. So this is a nice excuse to do this.
Yeah.
I hope that you do revisit the world of children's books and or something narrative. I think Christian and I once had that conversation with each other. It was like, when you put up your story beat images in the MFA, which was about the Black Widow. Do you remember, the project you did?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
that was good.
That was prescient too. That was like,
yeah. Well,
I had no idea. I chose the perfect characters.
It's funny how that works out sometimes.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's nice. I
as
really
well
enjoyed
as the mouse too. And the
I was going to say that next. Yeah.
As well, they were both great. To see your work sequentially, I think was a thrill.
Oh, thank you so much.
So that would be awesome.
So much fun to have the space to do it, because I never would have done that.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like, wow, I might be able to do this. This is kind of cool. Maybe I have a new superpower,
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
more of that.
Be cool to see you do some more, but I look forward to seeing your next evolution, whether it's New Yorker's covers or combining the cartooning and the modern work. But I love it all, so I look forward to whatever incarnation it is next.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I can't wait to see your thesis, truly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks again so much.
Yeah, thank you. This was nice.
So Dale, where can people find you online and find your work?
I'm on Facebook, of course, Instagram, and www.dalestephanos.com.
For more information on our 3-day workshop coming up this summer, August 3rd through the 6th at the Highlights Foundation, visit cartooneverything.com.